And that is why the James Mitchell analysis about however the results come, Ralph wins is nonsensical. It is puerile at best and reflective of a failure to understand the more fundamental issues. But you see, politicians are there just to think about governing. They don't really go deeper because this is more fundamental. It says what it says about us as a people. That's something like an electoral process that should be sacrosanct in a society can be treated so flippantly by the people involved in the process. So it leaves you to wonder about the issue of integrity. Does it matter anymore? We have been repeatedly on this program talked about the lack or the loss of morality. But our politicians boast that we have a new morality, and we insist on just another look. It is the absence of any morality whatsoever. That is the new morality that they can talk about. And you're seeing it in what you have heard in the courts in this petitions trial. That is what should be more fundamental. Because it says what we have become as a people and what we are willing to tolerate. That's what it does. So just another look is less interested in the ruling and much more fascinated with bringing to the Vincentian public the truth, the harsh reality of the overwhelming incompetence that surrounds our electoral system. There is nothing that the Unity Labour Party can do to bring back any sense of integrity and confidence in the electoral system as long as they remain in office. Nothing. Nothing. Because what the case has brought to the fore is incredible. It is an incredible indictment. It is not about whether or not Ralph could call elections when he wants. He has also missed the point, just like James Mitchell. They've missed the fundamental point. But the seeming nonchalance about what has emerged in the petitions is what is incredible. That is what is incredible. You see, Vincentians must judge the fairness of the elections on the basis of the crass inconsistencies, memory lapses, and incompetence served up in the courts by people who have been highly placed in different institutions in this country. Yeah? What can Vincentians take from the report that during her cross-examination, the former supervisor of elections stated that off the top of her head, she could not say whether or not she had received any Form 16s from North Windward at all following the close of polling. From the top of her head, she couldn't say whether she received any at all. Or that not to have been a concern? Or that not to have been a red flag? No, of course not. Of course not. So what are you worried about the outcome of the petitions for? What are you worried about it for? If this is the electoral system that we operate under, how it has been operating, then what are we waiting on results for? The results don't matter. It does not matter. You understand? If you can't remember whether or not you received any Form 16 from North Windward, you know, not just one polling station in North Windward, from North Windward. Right? And this is amazing because the law says that after the preliminary count of the votes cast in a polling station, the returning officer takes the Form 16 and places it in the ballot box, seals it in the ballot box. Right? That Form 16 says what transpired in the polling booth in terms of the number of ballots that they had in the box. Right? The number of ballots that they received to start with. The number of ballots that were used. And the outcome of the votes cast. That's what the Form 16 is supposed to have. Yeah? So if the former supervisor of elections saying she cannot recall whether she received any of these at all from North Windward. From North Windward. Yeah? The presiding officer is supposed to keep a copy of the Form 16. Right? But as you have heard over the past week, yeah? As you have heard over the past week, you have a situation where somebody claims that his Form 16 disappeared. He lost it. And then suddenly, during the case, it is found. Right? We have another instance where the person says they didn't retain any copy. They fill out the two and put them back in the envelope and put them in the box. But somehow, when they opened the box, it wasn't there. They don't know where it disappeared, where it went. You understand what we're saying here, people? The presiding officer keeps the other copy of the Form 16. At the final count, it is the responsibility of the returning officer to unseal the Form 16 that was in the ballot box, make any requisite adjustments to that, signs it, and reseals the form in the box and retaining the second copy. But in the case here, we are not speaking about one polling station, dear friends. The goodly lady says she cannot say whether or not she received any Form 16s from North Windward at all. She can't say it off the top of her head. That is a very strange statement to be making. Very strange statement to be making. Yeah? So we have a situation where others may have a different view. We just don't have any interest really in the results, in the judgment. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. What is more important is what the case has brought to the fore as to how we conduct our elections in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And it leaves you wondering, how long has this been happening? How long has this been happening? They want to reform all sorts of things. They changed the law in the middle of the inquiry, in the Otley Hall inquiry. Yeah? We changed the law when people started saying, hello, we're doing like England. We had the law. You can't say this and say that about your opponent on the political platform, etc., etc. But no, we could change anything. We could take a weekend and put in a new legislation. We can do anything. We can make things retroact. Anything we could do. But we can't wipe the shame of this petitions case from our faces. Cannot wipe the shame of our faces. And the people who are involved, whose performance in the courtroom, in terms of what emerged as the truth, with this one can't remember, that one can't remember, this thing disappeared, that other thing, and the overall incompetence that has been displayed, one wonders to what extent it bothered the government at all. When we talk about winning an election by any means necessary, it is really a bitter pill to swallow, you know. One would have imagined, you know, that the government of the day would have been decidedly embarrassed as to what has emerged, because this is happening under your watch. It is happening under your education revolution. It is happening under your so-called contract with civil society. And so one would have imagined that you'd be decidedly upset that this is how elections are conducted that allows me to win. You know, matters of integrity, matters of morality appear no longer important in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. If leadership is supposed to be exemplary, then this is a major problematic for the future of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We can only hope, dear friends, that our young students are disposed to applying their critical thinking skills to understand clearly this is not how things are supposed to be done, and that they will commit themselves to doing better, to creating a better Vincentian society. You know, some people may suggest that based on what has emerged, you would have said, you know, look, I am really so embarrassed by what is happening that we might as well throw in the towel and call fresh elections and see what happens. Having insisted, joining with the opposition, joining with the Green Party and say, guys, we have a problem here. There's something wrong with our electoral system and the way in which we select people to do this or to do that. Can we come together and create a better system? What can we do to make sure that it is transparent, that there is accountability, that people can have confidence in the system? That's what we need to do. But it is also bothersome that we had all these shenanigans and a seeming anxiety to be sworn in. That, Christian, that speaks volumes. The shenanigans that took place, the eagerness or seeming eagerness, but the overall shenanigans that appeared to have taken place to ensure, with a sense of urgency, that people be sworn in, that is something that requires comprehensive analysis. What did who know when and why? What did who know when and why? The anxiety. The anxiety. You know, from the time the election results started coming in 2015, people were making it clear. The commentators, pollsters, analysts were making it clear. The critical thing would be Central Leeward. Critical thing. And as happened with the referendum in 2009, there was a certain amount of glee when the polls results started coming in. Even among those on the panel, there was a certain amount of glee. Well, I told you this is what was going to happen. I mean, you could see the growth, you could see the increase in numbers here for the ruling regime, blah 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 blah. And suddenly, the needle switched. And then it came down to 7-7. And then the comments were, as we predicted, everything will come down to Central Leeward. Well, friends, everything didn't only come down to Central Leeward. But people waited for the Central Leeward results. And you have heard over the last few weeks the Central Leeward results. You have heard from the people who were brought as witnesses. And if this is what we have become, and how we select people, and who we have selected, and what they told us is how they performed. You know, had the case not been called, you might have been left assuming, man, everything is hunky-dory. They picked the right people, everybody know what they're doing, they've been well trained and they are competent. Oy, oy, oy. Now that you have heard for yourself in the court all that has happened, where is the integrity in the system, in the electoral system? Why should you have any confidence in the electoral system? Why should you? Why should you? It's the same matter we've raised with regard to the Public Service Commission. When you heard what came out in the courts, when you perused the judge's ruling, you left to ask the question, where is the integrity in the system? Where is it? Because you realize that they were not even following rules. Where is the integrity in the system? You know? And dear friends, we leave you with that. If you want to be interested in the results, that's you. But we have no interest. Our interests have been fed by what the people actually displayed about themselves and how they conducted themselves and conducted the nation's elections. That truth cannot be hidden. We don't need any judge to tell us anything further. We recognize that there's something wrong with the system. Something wrong with the system. The integrity of the system is what you may really want to put under scrutiny. If you don't change the system and the way things are done and insist upon competence, you have no reason to trust the system going forward. But you know, friends, the issue of Liat is there. Papa can't solve it. Poor fellow. Can't solve it. But it begs the question. The British government gave up British Airways. Unless you're rich like the Arab nations, governments are not capable of running airlines. Plain and simple. They have no business getting into that business. And what we're seeing with Liat is that nothing has really changed. You remember not too long ago, Papa came back from a meeting of Liat and boasted about how well they were doing. You remember Papa coming back from a meeting of Liat and telling us they're looking at procuring jets. And that it may be possible that they could be looking at new markets like Panama and maybe even Miami. Do you remember that? Papa may not remember that. And people said, wow, is the same Liat we're talking about that's run by governments? You know, so sometimes people talk real nonsense, politicians. Real nonsense. Because we know Liat. And we know governments. Okay? We know governments. And we know governments in the Caribbean. We have seen what happened with Air Jamaica. We have seen what happened with British West Indian Airways, BWIA. We understand what has been happening in the region. And you keep wondering whether it is a burden you want to put on everybody. Liat is serving. Of course, Liat is serving the needs of the sub-region. Of course, it is. But there are days you're flying on a 60-something seater plane with 5 people and 12 people, so you know the dance can't pay for the lights. But we believe and we have convinced ourselves, that is the politicians, have convinced themselves that if they don't prop up Liat, there'll be no air bridge in the region. Well, if the airlines that operate as a business gets you to pay them to come to your country, they get you to pay them to come to your country, as we're doing with American and so on. Several Caribbean countries, paying them to bring wide-bodied aircraft. Right? And we know that sometimes they come along empty, but we're saying we're providing that service. Then go ahead. You'll keep doing that with Liat every time. If there is a market for air travel in the region, businesses will emerge and do it. The reason that some of those other airlines have cut routes, cut flights, etc., is because they understand the market. There was a time where in Puerto Rico, you had as many as 60, 70 something flights a day. Yeah? There are times you had hundreds of, more than 100 flights a day. Then they cut it down to 70. Then they cut it down to 50. Then they cut it down to 30. If you get 10 American flights from Puerto Rico a day now, you get plenty. Why? They understood the market. That is their business. American Eagle used to come to almost every Caribbean island. They stopped because they recognized it was a losing concern. Now you get smaller aircraft, like Airborne and others doing it. So we could convince ourselves that if we don't prop it up, the people wouldn't get around. That is not true. It is not true. But perhaps one of the blights of the whole system is our leaders' fear of failure. And they don't want it to be said that it failed under them. Well, go along. Keep it afloat the way you want to keep it. You build an airport and they said if we build it, they will come, you know. Right? And you weren't thinking only of Liat. There was a time when we were protecting Liat so much that we really weren't anxious, even for Caribbean Airlines or BW at the time, to come here. But when you open the bigger international airport, you're begging others, come, because we need you. One is not at all certain that what the politicians are attempting to do with Liat makes any good economic sense. But politicians are just what they are. Politicians. And they find ways to justify their actions. And since many of them are lawyers, oh gosh, but they have the gift of gab. And by the time they finish it, you don't even know which way is up. But you know, at the end of the day, the reality is what you as a people have to live with. And if you don't start applying your critical thinking skills, you will allow them to continue to run rings around you each and every day of your life. Put an end to that nonsense. Take control by applying your critical thinking skills each and every day. You know, dear friends, today, the 16th day of March, 2019 marks 4,463 days since the disappearance of SVG Air J8VAX. Piloted by Dominic Gonzalez with Rashid Ibrahim on board. It disappeared on Sunday, the 19th of November 2006. Today marks 3,143 days since J8SXY, piloted by Shurish Lakram, disappeared. It disappeared on Thursday, the 5th of August 2010. We keep that as a reminder to you of how we do things in this island. One, we got a fancy report, quick time, published in the newspaper and everything. The other, not a peep. Not a peep. You know, when you're reading now of how the world responded to the loss of 2 aircrafts in the space of 6 months. The 737, Boeing 737 MAX 8. When you see how the international community reacted, hanker back to how we reacted. Hanker back to how we reacted when J8VAX and J8SXY disappeared without a trace. Without a trace. Think of how we reacted. And ask yourselves, why are we the way we are? And we leave you as always with a reminder that on the 19th of September 2008, Patricia Broman was crushed to death in her car while on her way to work. The husband is still awaiting justice. Still awaiting justice. But you wouldn't hear that on the law and you anytime soon. Enough said. You've been listening to another edition of Nice Radio's Callaloo presentation, Just Another Look. Just Another Look is an innovative, exciting, albeit decidedly provocative, and yes, certainly controversial, socio-political analysis of issues of a local, regional, and international nature. Just Another Look is heard only on Nice Radio, first aired on Saturdays at 6 p.m., repeated on Sundays at 9 p.m. You can catch us on the World Wide Web, www.niceradio.info. You could also check out our Just Another Look blog, www.justanotherlook.com. I am, of course, Keith Joseph.